a bunch of words.
And I'll do all I can.
My little girl's awful sick, and I don't have money for doctors or medicine. And the shacks we have to live in, not fit for a dog. But Gilroy says they're good enough for us mill workers, and he lives in that big fancy house up on the hill.
I agree with you, men. Your conditions do need to be improved. I don't know what I can do, but I give you my word I'll try. I'll go and try and talk to Mr. Gilroy again. Perhaps something can be done.
You don't need to come to me, preacher. I'm right here. And I've had enough of your coming out here and getting my men all riled up. What they have is plenty good enough, and they're perfectly satisfied until you came around. I've told you time and again to stay away from here, but you didn't listen.
Mr. Gilroy, it's going to take more than your threats to keep me away. These men need any help I can give, and they're going to get it.
Now, I warned you, preacher. Sheriff, he's the one I told you about. Arrest him.
You're Peter Grant?
Yes.
I'm afraid I'll have to take you down to the jail.
Jail? Whatever for?
I warned you to stay away or I'd call the sheriff. Didn't think I'd do it, did you? Well, I did. I'm sick and tired of this preaching business.
Are you going to come willingly, or do I have to use force?
No, I'll come peaceably, Sheriff. May I ask what the charges are?
Trespassing, causing a disturbance. Come on, let's go.
Now, see there? What happened to your preacher? Now I guess you won't be listening to him anymore.
Remember, men, Jesus said, love your enemies. Do good to them that hate you.
Sheriff, get him out of here.
Special duty.
Miss Emily Grant had only recently graduated from nurse's training, but already she was working as a special duty nurse. She took a personal interest in each case and always tried to do her best. Just today, she had finished another assignment and returned to her small apartment, tired and exhausted, looking forward to a well-deserved rest.
Hello?
Hello, Miss Grant?
Yes?
This is Mrs. Rogers, night supervisor at the hospital.
Yes?
We need a special duty nurse for a case that just came in. Could you come?
But I just finished my last case a couple of hours ago.
Oh, I know, but we really need you. No one else is available.
All right, Miss Rogers. I'll get there as soon as I can.
Oh, good. I was sure we could count on you, Miss Grant.
Oh, hello, Miss Grant. You got here very quickly. I'll give you a briefing on your case. His name is Mr. Gilroy, and he's in room 5.
Mr. Gilroy? Mr. Daniel Gilroy?
Mr. Daniel Gilroy.
I can't take the case. Why, you know what he did to my father. I couldn't be a nurse for Daniel Gilroy after that.
I knew what I was asking when I called you. Oh, please believe me that I tried to get someone else.
Did you try the registry?
Oh, yes, but there was no one on call, and I can't take a nurse from the wards.
I know, they're understaffed as it is.
Right, and I don't dare give him an undergraduate.
I imagine he'd sue for incompetent service or something else just as ridiculous.
Emily, I know I'm asking a lot, but can you be big enough to put aside your personal feelings and take this case?
I'd rather not. When I think of Father and what Mr. Gilroy did to him.
That's right, Emily. Think of your father. Think of what he'd want you to do. Oh, he was incapable of harboring resentment. Why, when he left the prison walls behind him, the warden told me that he said...
I know. Father would say, love your enemies, do good to them that act as Daniel Gilroy did toward him. All those noble impossibilities. Mother used to sit in the chair and repeat them to herself while Father was away. She found them hard, too, and Mother was a saint on earth. I'm not.
But look here, Emily. After all, what harm did Daniel Gilroy do your father, even by jailing him on those absurd, trumped-up charges? Your father was out in 3 days. The case was proved ridiculous in open court. The workers at the mills believed in your father as never before. They loved him because he suffered with them. Oh, Daniel Gilroy didn't harm your father. He couldn't.
But he tried to. I can't forgive him for that.
Your father could.
I suppose so.
And I think he'd want his daughter to be forgiving also. He never shirked a duty, not even when it led him to prison.
I know.
Your father and I were good friends, Emily. I honestly think he'd laugh a little. You know how he could always see the funny side of things. He'd say it was a joke on you. But he wouldn't let you off from your duty. Not for a single minute, he wouldn't.
I guess you're right. He would make a joke of it. He'd probably tell me to do my duty by Daniel. He always had a way of making me behave better than I intended.
And now that he's dead...
The influence of his godly life is still making me behave.
So?
All right, then, I'll take the case. I'll do my duty by Daniel Gilroy. My duty as a special nurse. Just that and no more. I won't pamper him.
Good for you, Emily. I knew you'd come through.
What's the matter with him, anyhow? I could hope it's something really serious.
Miss Grant, remember he's your patient now. And as a matter of fact, it's nothing serious at all. Only he thinks it is. It seems that Dr. Rand has been urging Mr. Gilroy for some time to have his appendix removed. But he's always refused for one reason or another. Now Dr. Rand is out of town on the first real vacation he's had in 3 years. And what happens? Mr. Gilroy overeats or something and gets a pain and decides his appendix must come out immediately.
But hasn't anybody told him it could safely wait at least until Dr. Rand gets back from vacation?
Oh, he's been told all right, but he insists that we operate at once and that we secure the services of a private nurse. That's where you enter the picture.
I know, but don't expect me to pamper him. By the way, who's operating since Dr. Rand is out of town?
Dr. Rand. Mr. Gilroy sent a private plane to fly him back here tonight. Well, Miss Grant, are you ready to meet your patient?
Not really, but I guess now's as good a time as any.
All right, I'll go with you. You prepare him for surgery and then wait until the operating room calls. They'll call as soon as Dr. Rand arrives and is scrubbed. The orders are on his chart.
As the elevator rose to the 5th floor, Emily thought of Mr. Gilroy occupying the nicest room in the hospital. How could she find it in her heart to forgive this man who years before had been responsible for placing her father in a dismal jail cell?
I surely appreciate your doing this, Emily. I know it isn't easy, and I promise I'll relieve you as soon as someone else comes on call. Well, here we are. Ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
What do you want? Can't you leave a sick man alone?
This is Miss Grant, who will be your special nurse, Mr. Gilroy.
Now, why didn't you bring me one that was full grown? This was just a little squirt.
Size doesn't count for much in our profession, Mr. Gilroy. It's ability and skill that count, and Miss Grant has that. She'll take excellent care of you.
Is that so? Name's Grant, huh? Any relation to Peter Grant, the parson?
Yes, sir. He was my father.
Father, huh? Thought you looked a bit like him. He never knew he wasn't living in the days of the Bible. But a man could trust him. And I'll trust you. You have something of the looks of him. Determined. Even a bit stubborn. You may leave, Miss Rogers. This one will do. Don't like me, do you? Well, can't say that I blame you. Your father bucked me and found me a bad man to buck. Now
Mr. Gilroy will not speak of that. You're my patient, and I have doctor's orders to carry out.
I knew it. Just like your father. No doubt you'd like to choke me. No, you'll carry out the doctor's orders. You're all right, girl. You know, I'm a very sick man. Dr. Rand's been after me for a long time to have that appendix or whatever it is out, but I never had the time. Thought it was a bunch of nonsense. He always said the time would come when I'd really get sick, and then I'd have no choice.
But I understood they had told you the operation could wait until Dr. Rand got back.
Well, that's what they said. But what do they know about it? I know how I feel, don't I? And I know I'm a very sick man. Now, what in the world are you doing, anyhow?
Getting you prepared for surgery so you'll be all ready when Dr. Rand arrives. We wouldn't want to waste any time, would we?
No, I guess not. I wonder where Dr. Rand is, anyhow. Seems like he ought to be here by now.
There is a limit to how fast even airplanes can travel, Mr. Gilroy. Dr. Rand will get here as soon as possible.
But what if that thing should burst before he gets here?
Well, then you'd really be sick. You'd have to let someone else operate.
Nobody's using a knife on me besides Dr. Rand. How long will the operation take?
Well, that depends on what the doctor finds.
What do you mean by that? It is appendix, isn't it?
As far as I know. But I'm not the doctor. I can't diagnose. I just carry out doctor's orders.
Oh, there you go again. Doctor's orders. Doctor's orders. That's all I hear. Suppose the lights go out while they're operating. What happens then?
There are emergency generators.
Are you sure they'll work?
No, I'm not sure. We've only had to use them once since I've been here, and they worked that time.
What if Dr. Rand's plane cracks up somewhere?
Well, surely one of your planes wouldn't crack up, would it, Mr. Gilroy?
Well, accidents can happen, you know.
Then Dr. Osborne would operate. I've heard him say he could take out an appendix blindfolded.
Not mine, he won't. What time is it, anyhow?
A little past midnight. There's a car driving up now. That's probably Dr. Rand. Here, let me put these things on you.
What for? What are they, anyhow?
It's what the well-dressed person always wears to the operating room.
Rags, that's what they are. Why don't they give you some decent-looking ones?
We have to have something for patients like you to complain about.
What's that?
A hypodermic needle. It's time for a couple of shots.
Do you have to?
Doctor's orders.
I'm a fool about pain. Always was.
Well, these shots will help.
But I don't like them.
These will only take a minute.
Rand won't start... Ooh. Rand won't start cutting until I can't feel anything. Anything at all, will he?
No, sir.
I've made my will. I've cabled Amy and Rose. That's my wife and daughter. They're on a world cruise. They'll be well fixed if I should... Miss Grant.
Yes?
Miss Grant, I want a parson, and I want him now. You call one up and get him here right away. Call anybody you know, just anybody.
Excuse me a minute, Mr. Gilroy. Yes?
This is surgery. We're ready for Mr. Gilroy. The orderly's on his way up with the stretcher.
All right, we're ready. That was surgery, Mr. Gilroy. They're ready. We must go now. I'll call a minister for you in the morning if you still want one.
Surgery can wait. I want someone to hang on to. If your father was alive, I'd send for him like a shot. He'd come, too. Best man I ever knew. I'd give $1 million if I could have him with me right now.
There isn't time to call a minister now. The orderly's already coming with the stretcher. But my father once gave me a verse to help call up my courage when I need it. And I need it often in my work. I'll give it to you because I think you need it, too. You're a Christian, aren't you?
Well, I believe there's a God somewhere, but I'm not a churchman, if that's what you mean. What's your verse? All I can think of is, now I lay me down to...
It's Psalms 56:3. What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee.
What time I am afraid, I will trust... Fits, doesn't it? What time I am afraid...
Keep thinking it to yourself while we go to the operating room.
You're coming with me, aren't you? Make sure things go all right?
I'll be there with you. Remember the verse as you take your anesthetic. It'll help. It always helps me. The orderly's here now.
All right. I'm ready. Let's go.
The operation was a success, and Mr. Gilroy began gaining physical strength each day. However, his disposition didn't seem to improve one bit.
Now that the worst is over, the rest is rather pleasant. You should even enjoy yourself.
I doubt that.
You'll be getting heaps of flowers.
Don't like flowers.
And all your friends will come visiting and bring you goodies that I won't let you eat.
Any friends I may have don't have time to go traipsing around to see sick people.
Oh, I see. Well, perhaps this'll make you happier. Here's a card from your wife and daughter.
What foreign port are they in this time? Gallivanting all around the world, spending my money. They don't care if I'm sick or not.
In fact, as the days went by, Mr. Gilroy became even more fretful, pettish, and exacting. One afternoon, as Emily returned after a few hours' rest, the floor nurse who had relieved her was nearly in tears. Oh, Miss Grant, am I ever glad to see you come back. I've had it.
Oh, what's wrong now?
Oh, nothing in particular, but that man is just impossible. This doesn't suit. That's not right. Miss Grant doesn't do it this way, and so on and on and on and on. I used to think I'd like to go into special duty nursing, but not anymore. I'm going into something easier, like, say, disaster relief with the Red Cross.
How about doing some reading, Mr. Gilroy?
Can't sit up high enough to read. Don't feel strong enough. Girl, I've been a sick man.
Well, then I'll read to you if you'd like. I used to read to my father sometimes. Just before he died, he liked me to read to him from some of the books he used to read when he was a boy.
Never was a boy.
Never was a boy?
I was brought up in a home, you know. One of those institutions that gives you everything but what you need. We never had a chance to do the things that boys normally do.
Here we are, Mr. Gilroy. Meet the boys. There's Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, Swiss Family Robinson, and...
What did you do? Choose them by the dirtiest covers?
Certainly. That's the best guide there is in a public library.
Well, what's the matter with you? Get busy and read.
I thought maybe you'd want to play a game of checkers first.
You're a terrible checker player. Let's see if you can do any better at reading.
How would you like to take a ride, Mr. Gilroy? Dr. Rand says I can take you out in a wheelchair now.
Do you really think I should? After all, I've been a very sick man.
Doctor's orders. He thinks it'll do you good.
All right. Bring me my dressing gown. Can't have everybody seeing me in this getup.
Here's your robe. Now let me help you into this chair.
No.
All set now?
I guess. Well, take me on a tour. I want to see what kind of a place I'm in. Hey, how come some of you nurses have black stripes on your caps? In mourning or something?
It means we've graduated from training. It's one of our biggest moments when we get to put a band on our caps.
How come those children are playing around in here instead of outside?
They're convalescent children from pediatrics, and there's no place else for them to play.
But they ought to be outside. Plenty of room on that lot over there.
That doesn't happen to be hospital property. We'd like to buy it, but there's just not enough money.
You ought to have more nurses on that ward. I counted 30 beds and only 2 girls running around like a 3-ring circus.
That's a question of funds again, Mr. Gilroy.
I don't like having these cots out here in the hospital corridor.
We only do that in an emergency. When we run out of beds in all the rooms, we do need more space. Well, here we are back at your room. I think you've had about enough for today. Look at the beautiful roses. Must have arrived while we were out. Oh, they're gorgeous.
Makes me think of a funeral. Take them down to the wards. Maybe they'll enjoy them.
Why, that's very nice of you. Are you sure?
Hurry up and get them out of here. Do I have to wheel them down there myself? And while you're at it, get me something different to wear. I can't keep going around this hospital in my fancy dressing gown. Get me one of those faded old bathrobes the other men wear. Tackiest looking things I ever saw. Make sure it fits.
After that, Mr. Gilroy toured the hospital regularly in his wheelchair, always complaining about the things he saw. As the time approached for him to be dismissed from the hospital, Dr. Rand called Miss Grant outside for a talk.
Miss Grant, I don't know what you've done to humor that man, but you're the only one that can do anything to satisfy him. He says he likes your spunk.
I guess I've learned that his bark is worse than his bite or something.
Maybe so. Anyhow, what I wanted to tell you is this. He's chomping at the bit to get back to work. Now, I don't want to let him out of here for 3 or 4 more days yet. But I will agree to having a secretary come up for a few hours a day for dictation and like that. Now, use your own good judgment as to how long she should stay. Just don't let him get too tired.
I thought you said my secretary was coming today. You did call her, didn't you?
Yes, Mr. Gilroy, I did, and I'm sure she'll be here soon. But I warn you, I'm not letting her stay all day.
Doctor's orders, I suppose.
Right. Maybe that's her. Hello?
Hello, I'm Mr. Gilroy's secretary. May I come in?
Yes, of course. He's been waiting rather impatiently for you.
Sounds normal.
About time you got here. We have lots of work to do. You may leave now, Miss Grant. But don't go too far away in case I need you.
At last the day came for Mr. Gilroy to leave the hospital. His secretary came in with a portfolio of blueprints. He seized upon them eagerly, spread them all over the bed, and dismissed her. After studying them for several minutes, he called for Miss Grant.
Miss Grant, what do you think of this layout?
What is it? An addition to your mills?
Can't you read?
Proposed addition to the Crofton Hospital. Are they consulting you about our pet castle in the air, Mr. Gilroy?
No, I'm consulting you. Do you like the layout?
Yes, I do. It's planned just right. Whoever drew it up knew just what we needed.
See anything else it needs?
Not a thing. Everything's perfect.
What do you think of this entrance? It's got to have a name, you know. Architect made that space especially for it. I'm giving this addition to the hospital.
Mr. Gilroy, that's wonderful. Well, that's simply splendid of you.
Well, you do need more space. I always did hate those messy cots in the corridors.
Oh, you could call it the Daniel Gilroy wing, of course. Or maybe there's room to put Gift of Daniel Gilroy, or...
Actually, I had another idea myself. Here, read it. What do you think?
Peter Grant Memorial. Do you mean it? It would be sort of a public apology or something.
Well, how about it?
That's beautiful of you, Mr. Gilroy. It's brave. People will know what you mean. It would make Father so happy if he could know, for it's just the sort of memorial he would love. Something that means service and healing for others. I can't tell you. I just can't say how much.
Well, now, don't bawl all over the blueprints. I didn't know special nurses could cry.
They can cry when they're very, very happy. It matters most to know that you really did understand, Father, how good he was, what he stood for.
I've been learning just that for the past few weeks. He proved it to me, and you've proved it to me again. You think that I've forgotten the night you carted me off to the operating room? I can't say the right things, but, well, just let me try to square myself this way, will you? You always humored me a bit, you know. You wouldn't cross a sick man's wishes now. It's your duty to accept this honor, girl, your special duty. Well, how about it?
Of course, Mr. Gilroy, sir.